The battlefield of Zalora was silent now. Smoke rose in long, dark ribbons over the red sand. The ground was broken, filled with metal scraps, burnt armor, and the smell of dust and blood. Only the wind moved, whispering between the ruined rocks. Sergeant Ethan Cole walked through that silence. His armor was cracked, one arm bleeding, and his helmet was gone. The once proud soldier of Earth looked tired and lost. His steps were slow, heavy with pain, but he didn't stop. He had survived the orbital strike that had wiped out half his unit. The others, his friends, his squad, were gone. He didn't even know if anyone else was still alive. The sky above him was purple, painted with 2 dying suns. Zalora had been beautiful once before war turned it into dust. Ethan had fought many battles, but this planet had broken something inside him. He walked for hours until he saw movement ahead. His tired eyes narrowed. 3 figures were standing among the shattered pillars of stone, tall, armored, and proud. He knew at once they were Valari, the alien warrior women who ruled this world. They were the enemies of humankind. Strong, tall, and graceful, they fought like fire, beautiful and deadly. Their armor shone silver and blue, shaped like living metal. Long braids of dark hair touched their backs, woven with tiny shards of crystal. Their golden eyes glowed faintly even in the dim light. Ethan froze. He was unarmed. His rifle had run out of charge hours ago. There was nowhere to run. The lead Valari woman stepped forward. Her face was calm but filled with strength. Her voice was low and smooth, like music mixed with thunder. "Human," she said, "you have entered sacred ground. You will speak your last words before you die." Ethan looked at her, breathing slowly. He could see her face under the helmet. Sharp features, proud eyes, and a scar that ran from her jaw to her neck. She looked like someone who had lived through many battles. He knew he was finished, but something about her stopped him from feeling fear. There was beauty even here, standing in front of his death. He didn't understand why, but the words came out softly, honest and unplanned. "You are so beautiful," he said. The Valari women froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. The leader blinked, her golden eyes wide. The other 2 turned toward her, unsure if they had heard right. No human had ever spoken like that to a Valari warrior. The Valari were feared, respected, and hated, but never called beautiful. Especially not by a dying enemy. The leader took a slow step closer, her hand still on her sword. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice low and careful. Ethan gave a weak smile. "I said you're beautiful. All of you. I don't know if I'll live another minute, but I wanted to say it. I've seen a lot of things in this war, fire, blood, machines, but not many things that make me stop and just..." Look, her expression changed. For a heartbeat, her face softened, almost human in its surprise. The other Valari whispered, "He mocks us, Captain. Let me kill him." But the leader raised her hand. "No, wait." She looked back at Ethan, studying his eyes. There was no fear there, no insult, no trick. Only truth. His voice had been quiet, broken but sincere. The silence stretched between them, an impossible moment between enemies who should have hated each other. Finally, the Valari captain lowered her blade slightly. "No human has ever spoken to me that way," she said. "Why would you say that, knowing you will die?" Ethan's lips trembled with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. "Because it's true. Even in war. There is still beauty in this universe. You reminded me of that." The captain didn't answer. She just looked at him for a long time, her thoughts hidden behind those golden eyes. The other warriors shifted nervously, unsure what to do. And for the first time since the battle began, Ethan saw something in an alien's gaze that wasn't hatred. It was confusion. And something softer, something almost human. The red wind blew between them again, carrying the ashes of a dying war, while a single human's words changed the silence forever. The Valari warrior women stood frozen like statues. The sound of the wind was the only thing that moved around them. Ethan's words had broken something invisible, something older than war itself. Captain Seralith, the leader, stared at the human in front of her. He was covered in dust and blood, armor half broken, eyes tired but calm. He should have begged for his life. He should have cursed them or screamed. But instead he had looked at her as if she was something precious. No one had ever looked at her like that. Not even her own kind. Behind her, the 2 younger warriors exchanged confused glances. One whispered, "Captain, he plays with your mind. He tries to make you weak." Seralith didn't respond. She couldn't. The words replayed again in her head. You are so beautiful. Humans were supposed to be monsters. That was what every Valerie child was taught. They came from a broken world, hungry for power, destroying everything they touched. But this man's voice, soft, broken, and honest, didn't sound like a monster. It sounded like a soul lost in pain. Ethan stood still, his arm still slightly raised. His heart was beating fast, but he didn't look away. He thought she might kill him for what he said, but he didn't regret it. There was something about her presence, something strong and pure. When Saralith finally spoke, her voice was quiet, almost uncertain. You are strange, human. No one says such things to their executioner. Ethan gave a small, tired smile. Maybe I just wanted to say something true before I die. Her eyes softened for a moment, but then the second warrior stepped forward, her face full of anger. Enough, she shouted. He mocks us with his human tongue. Let me end this. Saralith raised her hand sharply. Stand down, soldier. The warrior stopped instantly, surprised. No one questioned Saralith's commands. But now the air felt heavy with tension. Saralith turned her gaze back to Ethan. You fought in the Battle of the Eastern Ridge, didn't you? Ethan nodded weakly. Yes, I was part of the 23rd Earth expedition, I guess. Not anymore. I lost half my squad there, she said coldly. Human bombs rained fire for hours. Ethan lowered his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered, her head tilted slightly. Sorry? You say it as if it changes anything. No, Ethan said softly, but I still mean it. That simple answer hit her harder than she expected. She had faced thousands of humans, but none had spoken like that. None had looked at her as if she was real, not a symbol of war. Ethan's legs finally gave way and he dropped to his knees. The long days of walking, hunger, and pain were catching up. His vision blurred and darkness pressed at the edges. Without thinking, Saralith stepped forward and caught him before he hit the ground. Her hands, strong and warm under her armor, held him upright. The other warriors gasped in disbelief. Captain, one of them cried. You touch a human? Silence! Saralith's voice cracked like thunder, but her eyes stayed on Ethan's face. He was barely conscious, lips trembling, whispering something she could barely hear. Still beautiful, he murmured before collapsing completely. For a long time, Saralith didn't move. The human lay limp in her arms. His heartbeat was weak, but still there. She could have ended him in a second, but she didn't. Something inside her, something she didn't understand, refused to let her do it. The younger warriors waited, confused and nervous. Finally, Saralith stood tall and said firmly, He is a prisoner. We take him to the camp. But Captain, obey my command, she roared. The warriors saluted immediately. The captain of the Valerie did not explain her orders, and no one dared question her again. As they lifted Ethan's body and began to move through the red dust, Saralith walked beside them in silence. Her eyes were distant, her thoughts storming inside her. She told herself it was logic, that this human might have information, that keeping him alive was strategy. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. A few simple words had reached a place in her heart that war had long turned to stone. And as the twin suns of Zalora sank below the horizon, Captain Saralith, the fiercest warrior of her kind, could not stop hearing the voice of a dying human whispering softly, You are so beautiful. The night on Zalora was quiet and cold. 2 moons hung in the dark sky, bathing the land in a pale silver glow. The Valari camp was hidden between rocky cliffs, its lights soft and blue. Soldiers moved silently, guarding their wounded and sharpening their weapons. In one of the tents, a human lay still on a metal bed. Ethan Cole's breathing was weak, his arm wrapped in silver bandages that shimmered faintly. Alien healing gel glowed softly under his skin. The air smelled strange, like herbs and metal mixed together. He opened his eyes slowly and saw shapes moving around him. Valerie healers, tall women in flowing armor, spoke softly in their melodic language. Their words were calm but cold. When they noticed his eyes open, they hesitated. A few steps away, Captain Saralith watched silently. Her face was unreadable, but her golden eyes never left the human. Why do we waste medicine on him? One healer asked quietly. He is our enemy. Saralith's voice was steady. Because I ordered it. His wounds are severe, but he may have information about his people. The healer bowed slightly. As you command, Captain. But even Saralith knew her reason wasn't completely true. When she had held the human in her arms earlier, she had felt his heartbeat, fragile but steady. She had seen his eyes before he fainted. They were tired, yes, but full of something rare. Kindness. Ethan slowly turned his head toward her. "You didn't kill me," he whispered weakly. Saralith stepped closer, her armor shining faintly under the tense light. "No," she said. "You are alive because I allowed it. Do not mistake mercy for friendship." He gave a small smile. "Still, thank you." Her expression didn't change, but something in her chest tightened. "Why thank someone who might still end your life?" "Because," Ethan said softly, "I've seen enough death to know that every moment of life is a gift." The words made her silent for a while. She studied his face. His wounds were deep, but his spirit seemed stronger than his body. Finally, she turned away. "Rest, human. You will be questioned when you are strong enough to speak." Ethan watched her leave, her silver cloak flowing behind her like liquid light. Even in war, she moved with grace. Days passed slowly. Ethan's wounds began to heal. The Valari camp was a strange world to him. Disciplined, quiet, filled with warriors who looked like living statues. They didn't speak to him much, only stared with cold curiosity. He was a human among legends. Sometimes Saralith came to check his condition. She always asked questions, where his people were stationed, how many ships were left, but Ethan never lied or refused rudely. He spoke carefully, honestly, always respectful. One evening, as the sun set in purple and red, Saralith sat across from him. "You are different from the humans I fought before," she said quietly. Most of them screamed hate. "You speak softly, why?" Ethan looked at her and smiled weakly. "Because hate never healed anyone. I've seen what it does, to humans, to everyone. Maybe I'm just tired of it." She looked into his eyes for a long moment. "Tired," she repeated softly as if testing the word. "You speak like an old soul." "War makes everyone old," he replied. For the first time, Saralith almost smiled. It was small and quick, but real. "You are strange, human." "Maybe that's why I'm still alive," he said, trying to lighten the air. She stood up and looked down at him. "Do not mistake kindness for safety. You are still my prisoner." "I know," he said quietly. "But still, thank you for saving me." Her golden eyes softened just a little before she turned and walked away. Outside, the night wind blew softly across the camp. The younger Valeri whispered among themselves that their captain had changed. She spoke less of hate, spent more time near the humans' tent, and sometimes stared at the stars as if remembering something forgotten. But Saralith didn't understand it herself. A single human's words, simple and honest, had disturbed the calm wall she had built inside her heart. And as Ethan lay under the alien night sky, healing slowly, he wondered why the eyes of an enemy warrior had started to feel so human. Days turned into weeks inside the Valari camp. The war outside still raged on, but inside those rocky walls time felt slower, like the world had paused for a reason no one could explain. Ethan Cole healed quickly. The alien medicine worked faster than anything humans had ever made. His wounds closed, but the deeper pain inside him, the loneliness, the loss of his friends, still lived quietly in his heart. Every morning, Valari warriors trained in silence, their blades moving like silver lightning. Ethan often watched them from a distance, sitting near his tent. He admired their strength, their discipline, their quiet beauty. Yet every time his eyes met Saralith's, he felt something deeper, something unspoken that he couldn't name. Saralith, too, found herself watching him more often than she should. The human was fragile compared to her kind, yet he carried himself with a quiet courage she couldn't ignore. Even wounded, he had never begged. Even surrounded, he had spoken gently. One evening, as the twin moons rose high, Saralith approached his tent again. Ethan stood when he saw her. "Captain Saralith," he said softly, his voice respectful. She tilted her head slightly. "You speak my name as if it's something holy." He smiled faintly. "It sounds beautiful when I say it. Maybe that's why." Saralith almost frowned, trying to hide the strange warmth that touched her chest. "You have a strange way with words, human. I should be questioning you, not listening to your compliments." "Then question me," Ethan said calmly. "But maybe also, talk to me." She hesitated, then sat on a low stone near him. The night air was cool and soft light danced between them. "You humans," she began slowly, "destroy what you touch. You burn forests, poison oceans, make weapons that turn planets to dust. How do you call yourselves civilized?" Ethan looked down for a moment. "You're right. We've done terrible things, but we also build, we love, we dream, We write songs, we plant gardens, we hold each other when the world falls apart. Seralith's golden eyes softened slightly. And yet you fight. So do you, Ethan replied gently. Maybe fighting is what happens when two sides forget they're both alive in the same universe. That made her silent for a while. She looked up at the sky where stars shimmered faintly. I was raised to see humans as beasts, she said. When I was a child, I was told you would kill us if we showed mercy. But now, she paused, searching for words. You make me question what I was taught. Ethan smiled sadly. Maybe that's how peace begins, with questions, not orders. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. You speak like a philosopher, not a soldier. Maybe war made me both, he answered softly. The silence that followed was gentle, not heavy. They sat together, two enemies under the same stars, speaking not as warriors but as souls. After a while, Ethan said quietly, Do your people ever rest? Ever just breathe without thinking of war? Seralith looked away. We don't know how to rest. Victory is our only peace. He studied her face, strong, proud, beautiful. Then maybe that's why you fight so hard, because you don't know what peace feels like. Her eyes met his, and for the first time she didn't look like a commander or a warrior. She looked like a woman carrying a burden too heavy for one heart. Do humans know peace? She asked softly. Sometimes, he said, smiling faintly. For a few seconds. When the sun rises or when someone smiles at you or when you hear music. Peace isn't forever. It's found in small moments, like this one. Seralith blinked slowly. This moment? Ethan nodded. Yes, right now. Neither of them spoke after that. The wind blew gently across the camp, carrying the sound of faraway stars. For the first time since the war began, Seralith felt something inside her chest she had long forgotten. Calmness. And Ethan, sitting beside the alien captain, felt something too. A strange comfort, a quiet bond forming between two hearts that had no reason to understand each other, but somehow did. And as the night deepened, their silence said more than any words could. The sun rose weak and red over the rocky horizon of Zalora. The Valari camp came alive with movement, soldiers training, ships humming, and armor clashing in the distance. But inside one quiet corner of the camp, things were not the same. Whispers had begun to spread. The human prisoner, Ethan Cole, was still alive. Not only alive, he was being treated, healed, and protected by Captain Seralith herself. The Valari soldiers didn't understand why. Their captain, known for her cold discipline and unshakable pride, was now seen speaking softly to a human. Some called it weakness, others called it betrayal. That morning, Seralith entered the command tent, unaware that her superior, Commander Threx, had arrived from the capital. He was tall, his armor marked with gold, a symbol of authority and power. Captain Seralith, Threx's deep voice echoed through the tent. I hear strange rumors. Tell me they are false. Seralith bowed slightly. Commander, if you refer to the human, yes, he is alive. He was captured and... Captured? Threx interrupted sharply. You mean you kept him breathing when you should have ended his life? Why? Seralith's jaw tightened. He was wounded. I wanted information. Do not lie to me, Captain. Threx stepped closer, his eyes narrow and sharp. The entire camp whispers about how you speak to this creature, how you defend him. Is that true? For a moment, Seralith said nothing. Then slowly, she looked him in the eyes. He is different. Not all humans are the same. I have spoken to him. I have listened. Enough! Threx's voice roared through the tent. You dare speak of listening to a human? They are beasts who burned our worlds and slaughtered our people. Outside, several soldiers had gathered, drawn by the argument. Ethan, sitting in his tent nearby, could hear the raised voices. His heart began to race. He knew this could only mean trouble. Inside the command tent, Threx leaned closer. I should have you stripped of rank for this. You shame the Valari name. Seralith's voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. If mercy brings shame, then maybe we have forgotten what honor truly means. Threx glared at her. You speak like a human now. She didn't look away. Maybe they are not as different as we were told. That single sentence made the commander's face twist with fury. You will execute the human at sunrise. That is an order. Seralith felt her heart twist painfully inside her chest. She wanted to shout, to argue, but she couldn't. Defying an order meant death or worse. When Threx left, she stood alone in the tent, the silence pressing down like a heavy weight. Her hands trembled slightly. She had faced countless battles, but this was the first time she felt afraid, not for herself, but for someone else. That night, she went to Ethan's tent. The guard stepped aside reluctantly, knowing better than to stop her. Ethan looked up when she entered. He could see the storm in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Saralith hesitated before answering. "My commander gave an order. At sunrise, you are to be executed." Ethan's face went pale, but he didn't panic. He simply nodded slowly. "I see." "I tried to protect you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I could reason with them, but they only see you as a monster." Ethan smiled sadly. "It's okay, Saralith. You've done more for me than anyone could." She stepped closer, her armor gleaming faintly in the dim light. "I could still disobey. I could help you escape. But if I do, I'll lose everything, my honor, my command, my life." Ethan looked into her golden eyes. "Then don't lose yourself for me." But she shook her head. "You don't understand. When you spoke those words to me, when you said I was beautiful, you made me see the universe differently. You made me feel again." Ethan's throat tightened. "Saralith." She looked away, tears glimmering faintly in her eyes. "I don't know what this feeling is, human, but I can't let them take your life for kindness." He reached out weakly and placed his hand on hers. "Then whatever happens next, thank you." Outside, the stars burned bright over Zalora, silent witnesses to an impossible bond born in the ashes of war. And as the night passed, Saralith made her choice, one that would change the fate of both their worlds forever. The alien camp had grown strangely quiet that night. The stars above shimmered like frozen embers, casting their light over the steel tents and the tall warrior women who patrolled in silence. But inside the largest tent, something softer was happening. Ethan sat near the center fire, his face warm from the gentle flames. Across from him sat Commander Liara, the strongest of the alien warriors, the one who had once seen him as nothing more than a fragile creature from a backward world. Now her silver armor was set aside. Her long, pale hair shimmered like starlight as she watched him with cautious eyes. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence between them was thick with unspoken feelings. They had fought together, bled together, and saved each other more times than they could count. But something had changed since that day when Ethan called them beautiful. Something deep had taken root, something neither fully understood. Finally, Liara broke the silence. Her voice was calm but heavy. "Human," she said softly, "you have caused confusion among my warriors. They whisper about you and about your words, your courage, your heart." Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze. "Confusion?" he asked. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." She tilted her head. "Trouble? No, you have caused something stranger. You have made them feel." Ethan frowned slightly. "Feel?" Liara nodded slowly. "Our kind are raised to be warriors. Emotion is seen as weakness."
Yet when you spoke those words, "You are so beautiful," you shattered something inside them.
They saw themselves differently. Not as soldiers, not as weapons, but as women, as people. Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered that moment, how he had simply spoken the truth. "I didn't mean to offend," he said. "I just saw something human in them, something good." Liara leaned closer, her golden eyes reflecting the fire. "That is what frightens them. They have never been seen that way before." The air grew still. Ethan could feel her eyes searching his soul. He could sense the storm inside her, loyalty to her people and the strange, growing affection she tried to hide. "You risked your life for my soldiers," she continued. "When the enemy surrounded us, you didn't run. You stood beside us even when you had no weapon left." "Why?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because that's what humans do. We don't leave friends behind." Liara looked down, her lips pressing together as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. "Friends," she whispered. A strange word. "You call me that?" "Of course," Ethan replied softly. "You're more than a commander to me." Something flickered in her eyes, warmth, fear, confusion. She stood abruptly, trying to hide it. "You should rest," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Tomorrow we march again." But before she could turn away, Ethan rose to his feet. "Liara," he said quietly. "You don't always have to be strong." She froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had dared to see the cracks in her armor. Slowly she turned back, her eyes shining in the dim firelight. "I don't know what you've done to me, human," she whispered. "But when you speak, I feel something I cannot fight." Ethan took a small step closer, his voice low and steady. "Then don't fight it." For a heartbeat, the world stopped. The war outside the camp, the stars above, the silence of the soldiers, everything faded away. There was only her and him, standing on the edge of something neither could name. Liara reached out, hesitating before her armored fingers brushed against his hand. It was the first time she had touched someone without the purpose of battle. The warmth startled her. Fragile, human warmth. In that single touch, something shifted forever. The warrior and the human stood there, caught between two worlds, one built on duty, the other on emotion. Neither spoke again, but both knew that the next day's battle would not just test their courage. It would test their hearts. The fire burned low, and the night wind carried their silence into the stars. The morning came quietly, wrapped in silver mist and the cold hum of alien engines. Ethan woke to the sound of distant drums, the signal of war. The army was preparing to move, their banners raised high, their faces painted for battle. But something felt different that morning. The warriors were quieter than usual. They looked at Ethan with a strange mix of respect and warmth. Once they had called him fragile. Now they called him brother. Some even nodded as he passed, their eyes softening just for a second. His words, "You are so beautiful," still lived in their hearts, changing how they saw themselves, changing how they saw him. Liara stood at the front of the camp, her armor shining under the pale light. The wind tugged at her silver hair as she watched her soldiers form ranks. When Ethan approached, she turned to him with that calm, fierce gaze he had come to know so well. "It's time," she said quietly. Ethan nodded, checking the plasma rifle slung across his shoulder. "Then let's finish this." The battle that awaited them was the largest yet. The enemy had gathered near the red dunes, an army of monstrous machines and merciless soldiers. It was said that whoever won this fight would control the last energy vault on the planet. For Liara's people, it meant survival. For Ethan, it meant standing beside those who had once seen him as nothing. When the first explosions tore through the sky, the ground shook beneath their feet. The alien warriors roared as they charged forward, their voices echoing through the valley. Ethan ran beside them, firing at the advancing line of enemy drones. Smoke, fire, and sand filled the air. Liara led from the front, her blade glowing with violet energy. She moved like lightning, every strike filled with fury and grace. But the enemy was endless. One by one, her warriors began to fall. Ethan saw her stumble as a plasma bolt grazed her shoulder, and without thinking, he ran through the chaos to reach her. "Liara," he shouted. She looked up, pain flashing in her golden eyes. "Stay back, human. This is not your fight." He ignored her. Grabbing her arm, he pulled her behind a broken wall as explosions thundered around them. "You don't get to order me now," he said, breathing hard. "We fight together." For a moment, their eyes locked. Two warriors from different worlds bound by something stronger than orders. Then she nodded, a small smile breaking through the pain. They fought side by side, covering each other's backs. Ethan took down enemy drones with quick, precise shots, while Liara's blade cut through their metal ranks. The bond between them felt like a rhythm, unspoken, perfect, unstoppable. But then came the explosion. A massive energy cannon fired from the ridge, sending a shockwave that threw them both to the ground. Ethan's ears rang as dust and smoke filled the air. When he opened his eyes, he saw Liara lying a few meters away, her armor cracked, her breathing shallow. He crawled toward her, ignoring the pain in his leg. "Liara, stay with me." Her voice was weak but calm. "Ethan, you shouldn't have come back for me." "Don't say that," he said, gripping her hand. "You once told me your people don't feel. But I've seen your heart, Liara. You're stronger than any human I know. You're not just a warrior. You're alive." Her eyes shimmered with tears, something no human had ever seen from her kind. "You make me believe there is beauty even in pain," she whispered. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. Enemy soldiers closing in. Ethan raised his rifle, ready to fight until the end. But before he could fire, the surviving alien warriors appeared, rallying behind Liara's call. Her voice rose weakly over the chaos, filled with pride. "Fight for our world. she shouted. Fight for each other! The warriors surged forward with renewed strength, and within minutes, the enemy lines began to crumble. When silence finally returned, the red dunes were covered in smoke and victory. Ethan knelt beside Liara, holding her hand tightly. She smiled faintly, her eyes soft. You changed us, human. You changed me. He shook his head, his throat tight. No, you changed yourself. You just needed someone to tell you the truth. Her lips curved gently. That we are beautiful? He smiled through his tears. Exactly that. As the sun rose over the battlefield, its light touched their faces, human and alien. Two hearts that had found something rare in a universe built on war. And in that golden dawn, the warriors of Liara's people bowed their heads, not in mourning, but in honor of the human who had taught them the meaning of beauty, courage, and love.